Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance. Good evening. Welcome to the town board meeting, May 8th, 2025. Could I have a motion to open the meeting? Second. All in favor? Aye. We're just going to shift 2 items around real quick. I anticipate the public hearing being a little long, and I don't want the IWS have to sit here all night, so I'm just going to go to the IWS first. So could I have a motion to open the continued scoping session for IWS transfer station?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Coping device now.
This is in, perfect.
So we got a final, I'm assuming you guys got the final draft from Kelly?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yes,
very
this-
good.
yeah, today.
So we have a final draft scoping device
I'm gonna hold it.
Okay.
statement that came through from Kelly earlier in the week. It addresses all the issues that both the planning ERB board had. So I'm just gonna turn it over to you guys, and you guys can take us through it.
Yes, we're here, obviously, we need an ADB permit, solid waste permit, to accept 670 tons of MSW and C&D. That's where we're here. We were here a couple weeks ago. We had a public scoping document prepared, and we were waiting to get comments. We want to close that comment period so we can move forward with preparing the DEIS.
Yeah, and the enhancement to the facility obviously meets all the state regs. You know, obviously the improvements are to improve the operation piece of it as well as the safety piece of it as well. I don't know how much detail you want us to go into. I think
We're pretty familiar with everything
Yeah.
that's going on there,
Yeah.
so, you know, I know that there was a lot of data that came through from the ERB, from the town highway superintendent weighed in on some of the stuff. Kelly incorporated most of that.
Yep.
So the only thing that, you know, she wanted to make clear is that you guys would follow up with the DOT on the entranceway for Hatfield Lane. There's some issues there with, we didn't continue all the way down to the intersection of Hatfield and 17.
No, Hart-
Because
Hartley.
Hartley and 17.
Yep.
Hartley and 17, because there's some electronic devices in the ground over there, so she just want to make sure you follow up with the DOT and make sure that they're understanding of what's going on. I know
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
been in play for years, but,
No, we understand that, yes.
absolutely.
okay.
Have you heard anything from the DEC?
No,
Nothing back yet.
no.
So we did follow up with them. They did respond
Yeah.
and say that
We got emails saying they were gonna submit comments. That was a couple of, almost a month ago, that we're gonna get it within a week, and we have not heard back.
Mr. Supervisor,
And I
can
believe-
just add on to that?
Sure.
So I think the board's familiar, the public might not be, so this is a scoping session, this is what they're gonna study in their environmental impact statement. That's the first step of the whole environmental process for review. The DEC and the DOT and anybody else that's involved, they won't, and they can't, under New York law, they can't finalize anything with the applicant until that study is
Complete.
reviewed without findings. So they may have some initial discussions with applicants, they may have some pre-application meetings, but you won't see anything finalized until you complete your part.
Okay. And so, just so my own, I'm correct in my own mind, so we take them through, we finalize the scoping document tonight, we approve it as, you know, as given to us by Kelly, and then the next steps are, you know, you begin your process
They will
with,
submit an environmental impact statement, and then after that, you will make sure it's complete, which means it matches your scope, and then at that point, you would go through and do a substantive review on what they've submitted.
and then once that's completed, then they go back to, for final approval from the planning board?
No, they already have
Conditional final.
Yep, special permit and site plan approval, and planning board did their own secret review, but your secret review was for the ADB.
ADB, correct. And then once that's done, you get a site plan signed, and then they can apply for their building permit.
Yes.
Okay.
So we approved the document that they're gonna work on. If we finalize it tonight, then we approve that at some future date.
What do you mean, approve what?
Approve.
No, the
scope
scoping document is to be approved as is tonight.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm saying from the document, then a document is formulated. Then that comes back to us and we approve it.
You accept it, actually. You accept it, and then at that point, the environmental impact statement is released to the public. You get public comment on that. You would have a public hearing. After the public hearing is closed, the applicant will prepare what's known as a final environmental impact statement, which addresses all the comments, the board, the consultants, any outside agencies, the public. And then after that, you would adopt a finding statement. And once you adopt the finding statement, that concludes seeker, and all these other approvals can occur.
Anything else, George?
No.
Rick, anything for you?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, so with that being said, can someone make a motion to adopt the scoping document as modified?
Wait a second, I think there's some public comment.
No public comment, it's not a public hearing.
No,
Oh, it's advertised as a public hearing.
Mr. Supervisor, it is not a public hearing, but it's a continuation of the public scope.
Scoping document?
Yes.
So, okay, I apologize. So, the floor is yours.
I had some stuff I wanted to raise as far as a scoping document and also as their special permit, which has already been approved. Can I approach the board to give you some documents for a minute?
Sure, I don't have a problem, but if you can lower the mic so everybody can hear.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I just want to give you, I think you might already have these. These are the EPA, the consent order that was signed by IWS.
Sure.
Here's 3 copies. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we'll share one.
And this is a copy of our zoning 97 for our special permits and site plan. And while I realize they have approval of the special permit, apparently, they presented to the planning board, at least at the meeting that I was at, they were in full compliance with the law. I believe they presented that tonight. I think he did.
Excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, it's a public scoping session. You're trying to get comments on the scope, so.
This relates to
Hold on, let me- I
speedies.
just wanted-
Yeah,
I just want the public to know that there will be an additional public hearing actually on the whole application. Tonight is really just comments on the scope. So-
And this relates to it, I'm sorry, I wanted to give them proof of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
As you'll see in the documents where it's highlighted, that they let their speedies permit according to the EPA expire, then they renewed it, expired in '23. I believe this was given to the building inspector to look into because they were running impacted waters to their neighbors, which I believe is Amy's property. And in that, it says, I don't believe that the planning board was ever made aware of any of this when they approved it. I question how the neighbors would feel, or anybody on this board would feel if somebody ran water like that onto your property. And number 2, it also says if they're in violation. I don't believe, I went online, I went into, I think it's DART, to see if they have a current speedies permit, if it had been renewed. I couldn't find where it has. I don't believe they've ever produced this for the planning board. When Kelly was here, I said, I believe they have to have a speedies permit. She said no. So this is an issue that needs to be looked at. You're gonna have how many trucks coming in and out of this facility? Even if they're dumping indoors, you're still gonna have leachate all over their wheels, and you cannot run impacted waters onto a neighbor's property. If that is the case, then seal whatever's coming out. But it has to be looked at.
What do you want to include in the scope?
That they have their stormwater, I don't think is up to date.
But Kelly said they did. It was up
I
to
know
date.
Kelly said they did, the EPA says they didn't. So you can take your pick what you wanna
Well,
look at.
obviously, we have, you know, I
This
have to
board
take my,
can't excuse anybody from getting any other outside agency permit approvals, DEC, DOT.
I understand that, but I think that they have to have a stormwater permit is the point. They had one before.
The scope actually includes that requirement. Yeah, have you seen the scope?
Yes.
Okay, so on one of the appendices, It says stormwater management, pollution prevention plan, including all supporting technical data if required under the New York State General Permit. Yep, so they have to do that. It's in the scope.
Okay. I hope it gets done, because,
Well, they can't get their ADB unless it's done.
well, I,
So the process is that once this board adopts a scope, the applicant has to be responsive to the scope, meaning they have to meet everything in the scope. And this board won't make a completion determination until that happens.
okay, and as far as, I guess it's gonna be on the public hearing as far as them getting a special permit, how they got it, with
Yep.
not telling the truth or not giving the information.
This board also does not police the planning board. So
Uh, But they wouldn't be able to give an ADB without a, and I don't mean, I'm not trying to argue.
You're asking a
They
question,
wouldn't
I
be
don't
able
have a
to,
problem with it.
they wouldn't be able to give them an ADB permit without a special permit, would they? So it kind of hinges.
I don't know if the code requires a special permit for an ADB permit. I don't know, I'd have to look at it. But they have a conditional special permit approval and conditional site plan approval from the planning board. This board's looking at the ADB permit right now. What you're saying is relevant to the ADB permit, and there is a requirement in the scope for them to address it. Now, if it isn't required, the applicant comes back and say, it isn't required, I think this board's gonna say, well, demonstrate to us that it's not required. I think you recall from your time in the planning board when somebody would say,
Yep.
permit is not required, boards usually require a letter from that agency confirming that it's not required.
Exactly.
Or some.
I
other
agree with you
document.
100%. So, okay?
Thank you, appreciate it. Anybody else would like to speak? Neil, go ahead.
Yeah. At the last meeting, the question was raised of me, what the planning board did about the intersection of Hartley Road and 17, and I think I wasn't entirely sure what did happen, but I do know that since that, I talked to Kelly, and after the planning board meeting in March, she actually sent a letter to the town board suggesting that the town board get in touch with the DOT
Correct.
regarding that intersection. Okay, so that was where it was. I did go to the DOT last week to talk to them in Slate Hill, and they have not received anything
That's
from
correct.
anybody.
That's correct, they have
Yeah.
not. The letter went out today because
Okay.
Brad just got me back all of his requirements.
And so when I did speak to them, they were asking that we send as much information as we can to them so they can look at it. They are certainly aware of that intersection being bad. They're certainly aware of the fact that RDM was talking about possibly doing extra lanes.
But that's not at Hartley, that's,
No, it does go
Prior to
down,
Hartley.
it does go down all the way to Hartley, past Hartley, actually. RDM, in their recommendation, am I right, Sean?
The scope actually.
No,
says-
no, RDM going all the way to Hartley, their property doesn't extend to Hartley.
No, but their plan for 17M went actually past Hartley, I believe almost all the way down to
Hold on, let's
something
talk
else.
about this applicant.
Yeah.
Right, RDM isn't here, right? This applicant is required to get input from the New York State Department of Transportation and the town of Goshen Highway Department as part of the.
I'm aware of that.
That's in here.
Right.
So.
And so what I was just trying to bring up today, I said that the DOT was unaware of this application at all. And the DOT is open to the idea, they're aware of it, and they are aware that this other thing was in there, but obviously this applicant is not gonna be expected to do anything with the 3 lanes. But the applicant, they are open to the applicant doing something up there, so I think it's.
Maybe the governor will kick in a couple of $100 million.
I-
What do you think?
Pretty unlikely.
Buffalo Bills are happy.
And I know they kicked in money for Legoland, but Legoland is a different animal than IWS. But anyhow, the DOT is aware of it, and the DOT is open to the
Yeah,
conversation.
the letter went out today, we got Brad's information back today,
So they,
about 10 o'clock this morning. Rory completed the letter with me, and it went out to the DOT. I'll follow up with them this week.
okay, they
But
were
that
looking for,
requirement is in their scoping
Yeah.
document anyway.
so they were looking for information on the application itself. I didn't have anything with me when I was talking to them, so, okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Anybody else like to speak? Okay.
You can make a motion to close
Yeah.
the public.
I got you. Can I have a motion to close the public scoping session?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adopt the scoping document as modified?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need a roll call on the,
I'll just go with that.
What do you want to do next, Jeff?
We're gonna open the public hearing.
on the short-term rental?
Yeah. I can I have a motion to open the public hearing. Actually, can I have a motion to open the continued public hearing, introductory law number 13 of 2024?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we're turning over to Attorney Brady, who has the
Turn it on. Of course.
current law that's been put together over the last couple of weeks. We're gonna go through it, so we'll go through it. Nobody has seen this, just so you're aware of it, neither is the board. So we're gonna go through it with him now. Everybody will get a copy of it. We're gonna continue the public hearing until next week, then everybody will be able to weigh in on it.
So, can everybody hear me? I don't
Yeah.
have, I have my back to one part of the room, but I'm addressing the board right now. So, just for procedure, public hearing would remain open. It would probably be 30 days, supervisor, to get the GML back from the county, let the planning board have its comments. Town code doesn't require the ERB to be in receipt of this, but they chimed in last time, so I guess it can't
Very
hurt.
good.
They come in as members of the public, not necessarily from the ERB. So I just wanna, is this up?
Well, if we're gonna stay
Can
up
we
for
get-
30 days, then they can, more than welcome to have it.
Get on, is this,
No,
can
they can't get
everybody,
on both.
Can't get it on both sides.
can everybody see that? document?
Small, yes.
Okay, so, let's see. Oh, there we go, there we go. Better?
Yeah.
Still long?
Well.
I think if it's any larger, it might. Oh, we'll give it a shot. So I have 3 documents to present to everybody. I tried to make this as palatable as possible. This first document is how the construct or the structure of the actual local law to be presented to Secretary of State to ultimately be adopted would look. I don't want to discount the first few sections, but they are not as important as the actual terms that are going into this law. And the next document, you'll see the amendments contained within the town law itself. And the third document is, I break down the mechanics of how this law would actually operate. So I hope that you guys will give me a little patience from the electronic and here Mary's, the IT department tonight.
We're in
So
trouble.
I'm surprised the battery is.
Everybody turn your cell phones off.
Okay, so I'm gonna direct you guys to this section right here, which is the amendment. I'll read it in case anybody can't read it, but it states, Goshen Town Code shall be amended to follow the following subsections of Chapter 97 zoning as follows. I have my first typo. Definitions, under definitions, there's only one definition being added, entitled short-term rental, which reads, any portion of real property rented for compensation in exchange for lodging for a period of not more than 31 consecutive days. For the purpose of this chapter, this term short-term rental should not include bed and breakfast, boarding lodging house, hotel, motel, or ongoing month-to-month tenancies. So before I move on from that section, the choice of that definition is very purposeful. It has 2 parts to it. One is that I've been directed to draft a law that prohibits short-term rentals. Our code, most codes are, is over the years they've become, I call it Frankenstein. And Sean might have a different term, but you get concerned about pulling one piece out. You can use Jenga if you want on that, right? There are multiple definitions throughout our code that they're not in conflict, but for instance, lodging facility in our zoning references hotels. Our hotel definition, hotel motel definition, and taxation includes Airbnbs, bed and breakfast, and the like. So that amalgamation gets concerning. What it did was I figured out, I believe, a way to identify quote-unquote Airbnb or Vrbo, which is really a short-term rental, right? We gotta be clear that Airbnb has a corner on the marketplace, but they are not necessarily the definition. And wanting to leave the ability for hotels, bed and breakfast, and your month-to-month tenancies still authorized or allowed by code, I extracted out 31 days and pulled those out as exceptions. I believe, a review of the code that identifies what a short-term rental is. But there are additional layers to that definition, so I'm gonna skip ahead to this section that's highlighted under I, which is a little close to H here. Let me separate that. Presumption of dwelling unit as a short-term rental property. You've heard me reference presumptions a few times throughout this. So I liken it to like I came from the criminal law background at DWI, right? And you're trying to assess impairment. There's indicators or indicia of impairment, right? One would be a Alka-Sensor. One would be observation. One would be words, admissions. And I kind of liken it to that, right? We identified the 31 days using your dwelling unit as a rental, and that's not a B&B, it's not this, it's not that. But we're not the Gestapo going into people's houses and being like, are you renting this place right now? So there's got to be some indicators to the code enforcement officer. This is something that I could see me coming back in 2 months and amending this law to add another presumption as we discover presumptions. I mean, these are ones that we were comfortable with identifying. By we, I mean myself and Mr. Rometta, who's handling the prosecution of code violations for the town. So his input was very important. So I just, again, we identify short-term rental, some presumptions, and that will come back into play later on. I will give everybody time to read it, promise you. So, we identify short-term rentals. Short-term rentals then get placed into section 9710, C1G. 9710 is allowable uses by district, and ultimately, what's allowed and then what's not allowed, okay? As you see, section C is prohibited uses in all districts. One identifies what the uses are that are prohibited, and goes A through H, A through F, and I've added G, short-term rentals. There's a clause in there that you can see is C, presumption of dwelling unit as short-term rental property, which I just discussed prior. Naturally, once there's an identification, and again I'll go through the mechanics, you need to have an investigation, and ultimately if that investigation leads to the presumption that a violation may have taken place, violation notice will be issued, and that section is 9767, violations and enforcement, penalties for offenses. You'll see some short highlights in the first couple sections. They are creating the exception that is found below. I'm not trying to gloss over it. It's meaty. I'm trying to give you the guys the what to look for when you do read this and go through it line item by line item. So there's some exceptions created in the existing enforcement portions, and you'll see the yellow part starting at G, which is if our code enforcement officer determines there's a violation based on however they became aware of it, either by a citizen noticing them, their own observations, or report by some other mechanism, they are authorized to issue an appearance ticket under Chapter 44 of our code. The next section, which states notwithstanding the other provisions in this chapter, and this is probably the most important language in here, which has always been the challenge, is the notice provision, right? And it's not like your shed's not up to compliance, here's your notice, you got 30 days to, remediate. Well, one day, I'm looking at you, right? 1 day is too long to remediate on the violations, right? It's got to be it's a de facto violation. It's like
depends on the violation, certainly, but the shorter it is.
Well, there's no remediation. The remediation at the discretion of the prosecutor and the court, right? If someone's really unaware of this and it looks that way, then that's. Like in any other, it's not open for that yet. And I know I talked to you and then I told you not to talk.
Go ahead.
I just got to stay on track.
That's fine.
All right. So you'll see there's an escalating clause here in the violations. I mean, could someone out-earn the violations? Sure. And then maybe an additional amendment goes in there. But I think 1,000 and then 1,500, certainly get people's attention. Okay. So I want that to just sink in as I go to the next section, which is just a more of a voyeuristic thing. You don't need to really have much input, but I know that in the past, one thing that's been asked of me is to place, because they're piecemeal, right? You don't get the context of the full code unless I'm explaining it. So I've created a document that, let me get this little, okay. So you'll see, and this will be available, all these documents will be available online. I realize I'm a little behind my target time, but I created 2 extra documents for simplicity for everybody. So this document contains what I just explained, put into that code complete in its completeness, how the code will look should the law be adopted as presented tonight, okay? I don't want to spend too much time on that. I think that's something that it speaks for itself. I think it gives context. So I took all 3 sections that are affected by this and inserted the language therein. So like this last part, 9784, which is the definitions, it's a lengthy thing, and all that's in there is that short-term rental definition. But I figured let's be thorough and put it in there, okay? So that's that document. The final document, which I think helps the most, appears to not be open. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's get this one. So again, this is from kind of how you look at it from a prosecutorial end. Most laws we present don't have a prosecutorial arm to them. So if you look at this, I break down in 3 parts. Notice, the investigation, and the enforcement. I've gone through this already, but I'm putting it in order. So the code enforcement officer under 9767B becomes aware, whether it's he witnesses or receives information, a complaint, whatever it is, he shall properly record such a complaint and immediately investigate the report thereon. Pretty standard, it's a provision that's already in there, in the code. And then it goes to, he's to look to, or rely upon 9710C1G, prohibited uses in all districts. The uses are prohibited in all districts, short-term rentals. That's his reliance, that's his authorization combined with the 9767. Then goes into his investigation, which he's prompted to do, he or she is prompted to do, which is to investigate and identify whether there is a presumption, or he believes that there's a presumption, that a short-term rental exists or existed at the time the complaint was made, okay? So that is our presumption list. That's what he or she relies upon. And once a presumption is satisfied, 9667G kicks in. If the code enforcement officer determines there is a violation, he or she may issue an appearance ticket pursuant to Chapter 44, which we touched on in the beginning. And it kicks right to the next part of the clause, which is, all right, violations issued, now we wind up in court, the prosecution happens, and if the threshold is satisfied that the short-term rental existed at the time, or still exists, or is being marketed, and no remediation is taking place prior to it being used, then the fines and surcharges kick in. I forgot to mention there is a imprisonment clause, which is a very rare remedy. I will state though, it was utilized on a more traditional code violation where someone just refused to remediate and refused and refused, and eventually they, you're playing chicken with the code, I guess, right? So they lost that round. That's my overview. I certainly will. I want to be very clear. Amendments to this, they may seem simple and they may seem like trivial the length of time, but it requires me to go back in each time to figure out that I'd make sure I don't Frankenstein something, because the trouble with prosecuting these cases is that if there's ambiguity, you've heard it, there's ambiguity in the code at times, it doesn't generally favor the town. Conflict in the code favors an applicant or someone who disagrees with the code or that wants the code to work their favor. So I appreciate your patience with it. I will again note, this would not be, I'm not a board member. Legally speaking, I would still encourage at least even if this goes into place, that we continue to explore permitting and regulating rather than prohibiting. I've just, maybe it's just where it came from a legal background. I just believe that it's a safer way to do things. I think it builds towards the future should the landscape of Goshen change. I can't speak to every person's view in here, but I have been contacted probably equally with content towards both. The board has directed me to draft a law that prohibits it in all districts. It's the simplest way to do it. I just don't think it's the most effective legally. I don't have an opinion otherwise. I want to make sure be very clear on that. That being said, I think I'll open it up to you guys for feedback. I don't need it today. If you don't have anything but questions, written somewhere over the next 30 days.
I don't, because I haven't seen the whole thing.
Right, and I didn't, I apologize to everybody. I said I would get it to you. I know it's not the right way to do it on the fly, but mechanically speaking, I wanted to make sure you guys understood how it worked. That's what the law. I mean, it went from a 25-page law to 3 pages.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, I mean, I know it's a public hearing, but I don't know if anybody really has anything to say.
Go back. You don't think so?
You haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's,
All right, well,
I listen.
yeah, Bill, I apologize. I didn't think anybody would have anything to say.
Seen and heard enough.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Troy, Town of Goshen. Over the course of the past 2 years, we've had a lot of stuff. And Rory, I appreciate the amount of detail and the legal considerations versus practical and whatnot. I think my takeaway over the past 2 years has been 2 key elements. They're legal or they're not legal. And what you've presented would allow short-term rentals under certain conditions, right?
Kirk, the initial
No,
one or the one I
this
just
abolishes
did?
it. This abolishes it.
This is a complete prohibition in every district. No permit process, nothing. It identifies what a short-term rental is, it identifies the presumptions that would assist in what amounts to probable cause to believe that a short-term, if they list on Airbnb, it's a presumption, right? They're gonna get a violation if that is brought to Frank's attention, the building department's attention, or someone's attention.
Okay, I'm sorry, I guess maybe.
That's all right, let me go back, I'll work through it with you on this.
I thought there were all these details about, you know, what we would do and what.
So there's, the part,
Go back
I don't
to-
know where to go, I mean, I could go to the, all right, so,
Rory, could you just go to the top, right where you started?
Yeah,
right
back to
here?
the first document.
okay, first document, the law?
First
Yeah.
line, yeah.
Okay, all right, I just figured it.
We're just trying to help you.
Well, good luck. All right. This is the law itself. Legislative purpose and intent. Town recognized it would be beneficial for the town to control and regulate the use of short-term rentals within the town of Goshen. Provisions of this section are intended to preserve and protect the health, character, safety, and general welfare of the residential neighborhoods and rural areas where short-term rentals often operate to mitigate the adverse effects of short-term rentals. So, the law is entitled Short-Term Rental Prohibition, prohibiting the use of a dwelling unit as a short-term rental property.
Okay.
So,
My error.
Answers your question, Bill?
That's it, that's okay.
I'll go home now.
Good evening, my name is Chris Haley, I'm a resident of the town of Goshen. As much as I've spoken about this, I would like to say thank you to Supervisor Betro. I understand you have a lot of things going on at any particular time. I am sure this has been on your desk the entire time. I know you've stayed with it, and you and your board have worked tirelessly at this. You've listened to the public. I'm not to say that this won't be changed, but I do appreciate that you have stayed with this. There are more people watching on YouTube tonight than you might know, and for anybody listening and hearing, I would like to say thank you to the board and to Mr. Brady for dumbing it down just enough so that I can understand it, and it was a
We can
lot
all
of work.
understand it.
I think he was taking a shot.
So thank you very much.
Thanks.
I didn't.
Okay, hi, I'm Dr. Veit, I live in Goshen, and I have some questions that you'll tell me if it's legal or not. But, you know, from what I understand, the state law now requires somebody having one of these bed and breakfasts to register properly.
Mhm.
It was more of that type of thing that the state seems to care about. So,
That's so they can make money off of it.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
not, it's not to identify it
Yeah.
to make my presumptions easier.
Right. But anyway,
It does.
when things continue to keep happening, as I feel in what I deal with, the one next to me, and maybe it will never happen to anybody else, but if it does, I would think there should be some type of limit. How many times are they called up because of crap in everybody's yards from them?
Well-
Or parties, and maybe, to really get your attention, if they do something like that 3 times, 2 times, whatever, then they lose their license, if that's the right
Well,
word.
you're assuming that we're gonna allow it to happen. This law does
Well-
not allow it to happen.
But, good, but, you know, kind of tell it to some of the people I've dealt with, the owners. These are not
Oh, all right,
private
this
citizens.
should help, right? But first violation is fine not exceeding $1,000 or prison term, imprisonment for a term of not exceeding 15 days.
Mhm.
That's pretty strong message, okay? There is no permit process in Goshen. It's a prohibition across the board.
Oh, I thought the state had made you register.
No, the state, yeah, if you have
If you
a
approve
permitted Airbnb, you have to register it with the state.
And the county.
That's so they can
Okay,
get
good.
money off it. Again, but it will help in the identification process. Someone registers their Airbnb, I'm like, thanks.
So, and what I've been doing is, and probably other people, taking pictures when this happens, put it in. So a complaint, would it go, a formal complaint form and
Yeah, I
send
think that's the
pictures
next step. I mean,
to that type of thing?
I'm trying to triage the workload here. Before I go and create a complaint form, I would like the law adopted on what goes into the complaint form.
Yeah.
Because if whatever, it's, yes, it will be
Okay.
something that's turned.
And I know I included a couple of things from the internet and some
Dangerous
newspapers.
place.
And one of them says, according to a new law, this is NBC, no more than 2 paying guests are allowed to stay at a time, and the owner or host must be physically present during the
It's not allowed. 2, 1, 0.
Yeah.
What did you say, I'm sorry?
No, the
No
short-term
one's-
rentals will not be allowed if this law is passed, period. Somebody comes to Somerville Way, you call me the first day, Frank's up there, they fine him,
Okay,
and they're done, everybody's moved.
right. And does it make a difference if the owner never lives there and
There's
it's
no
a
difference,
business?
you cannot rent,
Like a-
if this law is passed,
Good.
you could not rent to anybody, you couldn't rent to your mother,
Oh.
short-term.
Yeah, I tried that once, didn't I? But, well, that's good to know, and you probably have heard me talk about the judge who was a Supreme
Yeah,
Court
I
judge in
agree.
New York State, and she
I went
just...
one step above that judge, okay? It's prohibited everywhere.
Right, and she just said, she threw out the case that Airbnb and some rich people
Yeah.
were fighting, and she said, anything you do in life, there are rules and regulations. Look, there are regulations, I thought, residential areas mean this, business means that. And right now, we have places that these regulations, I mean, they went into a business, they took the chances with it. So they gotta deal with the results. And that's basically what the judge said when she threw it out. Is that something that makes sense to you guys too?
I'm,
in the law.
does the law I
That'll
wrote
be
make
in the
sense
law.
to you?
Oh, that'll, well, yeah, it's starting to. And,
Just to secure,
What-
you know, the fact that we're serious about it.
Oh, I see that.
There's a resident of Goshen, not of Goshen, but somebody that owned property in Goshen, sitting in jail for 120 days, because he
Wow.
would not listen to us.
Yeah, what-
So we're not taking any, we're
these,
taking this very seriously.
these owners though, and maybe there's something for this, maybe you already have this. You try to contact them by phone, they say, call me anytime, I'll be there, like that, BS. And
It's a different,
5 or
it's
6
different, it's
days.
different when you're trying to contact them and an authority is contacting.
No, I contact the authorities,
Well, okay.
but they may not, and they're
They
very
don't have-
busy.
Let me be very, as clear as I can be.
Please.
They didn't have the teeth. That's the point of this law.
Good.
That's the point of the enforcement.
Good.
Everything you've asked for over the last year and a half, I have put into that law.
I asked for a gold necklace too.
Thank you. I did not hear that. as
We got your vacuum
compliments.
cleaner instead.
Yeah, the stolen vacuum cleaner. I can't say that word. And what about, for example, a place like this where they have bedrooms in the basement without windows? Isn't that a zoning law?
But can I say,
What can we do?
They will exist.
I'm gonna be doing this for 3 more years if you want me to go down to that rabbit hole. Take this law, if it prohibits it, and then we can fix it from there.
Okay.
I cannot, this is a year and a half.
Okay, that sounds
I'm tired
good.
of it.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I might just, yeah, I'm not gonna say.
And just to let you know, it's a little tricky to find out who owns it. I've been through that little game, and
3 minutes is up.
Don't need to know who owns it. It's not gonna be allowed. We know who owns it. We know who owns the one on Somerville Way.
or in the future for other places.
Dr. B, we gotta let other people talk
Yep.
on this, all right?
Of course.
Okay,
Of
thank you.
course. We can talk again later, I guess.
Absolutely.
There'll be another public hearing.
Okay. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate what you're coming up with.
Now, I just have a question. You said something about 31
Yeah,
days?
yeah. Name for the public.
Oh, Nan Gil Wilson?
I know who you are, yeah. You didn't have to say it to me, but I got it. 31 days, yeah.
What did you say about 31 days?
That's the, I'll read it, just so we can get it very clear. I don't need, I'll just.
It's on the terms of this more than 31 days. It's not considered.
Any portion of real property rented for compensation in exchange for lodging for a period of not more than 31 consecutive days, so less. For the purpose of this chapter, short-term rental shall not include B&B, boarding or lodging house, hotel, motel, or ongoing month-to-month tenancies.
Okay. Well, I don't know, it just hit my ears that it should be 28 to 31 days. Instead of just
What, for
31
February?
days.
I think the,
So, I don't know, just
I will,
my head.
I honestly, my brain's too fried to death. You might be right on that. I don't
Yeah,
think
so
so
think
because
about
every,
that.
I will think about it. But that's consistent with the state's definition. So,
They said 31 days, the state?
well, if I go 28 to 31, right, what happens, so it's 28 then?
I don't know, you know?
Let me digest that one. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
think
answer,
about
but that's
that.
fine.
It just hit me in the head that
Sure.
maybe you should think about that.
I will,
Okay,
it just
that
hit
was
me in
all.
the head too, so I will think about it. But I,
Mr. LeBruna.
Good evening. Let me begin by saying
Your name.
my name. My name is Salvatore Labruna.
why are you looking over at me? Think about,
I appreciate the work that Mr. Brady did, especially on the indicators and the enforcement of this law. And as coming from the criminal background as well, you know, that's what you need. You have to have those indicators. You can't just, you know, go on rumors or hearsay. So it's well constructed, so I appreciate that.
thank you.
My issue really is the matter of prohibition. Because we have heard, you know, frankly, just horror stories from residents about short-term rentals near their homes. But everyone that I've heard, and I could be wrong, has been related to an absentee landlord, someone who doesn't live on site. I haven't heard anyone say, you know, I've got this neighbor, he's really nice, good family, but they've got this Airbnb thing going, and it's really caused a problem. So, but this prohibition would prevent anyone from doing anything like that. So, I guess what just bothers me, not that I have any interest in ever having an Airbnb or anything like that, but the idea is that people who don't live in this town, who are causing a problem for residents, and then we are essentially putting this prohibition in, it's punishing residents who live here, who are trying to make a living, or, you know, try to pay their taxes, you know, the school taxes and everything, everybody talks about it. It's a real burden. And for some people, not everyone, it's not for everybody, but for a small set of people, they use it to help pay their bills and their taxes. And it's an option that I think, you know, my personal opinion is that if it's regulated properly, you're not gonna have any of these issues that people are having, particularly if it has to be someone who lives on site. It's the absentee landlords, people who don't live, have no skin in the game, they don't care what happens in the neighborhood. Those are the people that are causing the problem. My opinion, again, is that it makes more sense basically starting out with them. you know, and banning them. It has to be your premises, your primary residence, then that you can do it. And if you want to do it, guess what? You also have to register it. It has to be inspected. It has to be safe. And if we do it that way, I think 95 to 99% of the problems will be solved without punishing residents who are just trying to, you know, help pay their bills or you know, they're in over their heads on a house that they can no longer afford. So I think it's a fair option. I mean, I haven't stayed in an Airbnb, and I don't ever, just get that out there, they don't ever plan on doing it. And I know this has been a long process, but I would ask the board to take a step back. There are ways to regulate it, and I have confidence Mr. Brady, based on this work here, he's got, you know, you've got the strength of the indicators for the enforcement end for people who don't live in this town who are doing this. And that we can regulate it so that they're safe. The other issue I have is that if it's a blanket prohibition, people are just gonna ignore it, you know, and then they're gonna be doing it and it's not gonna be safe. So that is probably the worst case scenario. And I think what struck me a couple meetings ago, someone mentioned that if you go on like Airbnb or whatever, and you list there's like how many, for Goshen, what was it, like 60 or something like that.
Decent number.
You know, and we have had a lot of complaints, but I would wager that most of those complaints are for a few of those. So that means that there's a whole bunch of other ones that are out there that no one's even complaining about, that are existing and people are getting by and doing well. So I wouldn't want to just eliminate all of those because of a few bad actors, particularly when they're not even residents of this town. So that's just my 2 cents, I guess.
I do notice online that, especially in the village, I did see a couple where somebody lived in the house and they were renting out a room, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who had, sometimes it's an accessory dwelling unit, sometimes it's part of the house. There's different ways that people do it. Some people do it when they're away, some people do it when they're home, some people, you know. A friend of mine who lives up in Kingston was doing it for a while, and they're regulating it now. So to me, I think it's very doable. The village has a law. You know, I asked Trish at the building department about it. She said there's been 1 or 2 complaints, but other than that, they haven't had any major issues. Now, I think in the town, this has become a particular problem with people buying up these houses and doing this. So I don't know if, going by what the village has, I just think it's different. In the village, there seems to be more just regular people who live on premises who are doing it. Whereas in the town, you've got these people that are really, you know, taking advantage. So, you know, I just think start with what we know is bad and not just, you know, eliminate everybody from being able to do it. I know I keep looking at
That's all right.
Mr. Brady, but I know it's not you, and we agree in a certain on some things. But I just asked if the board would, you know, take that step. I think it would be better for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, David Wilson, Goshen resident. You know, it just occurs to me that you're opening up a whole can of litigation worms that is gonna be, you know, to kind of follow up on that. Issues of free enterprise, invasion of privacy, all kinds of things that can be may seem peripheral at this point, but all of a sudden, it's a can of worms right in the middle of the room once it's happened. When's the vote on this?
Potentially in 30 days, potentially, but no earlier.
And that'll be announced too, right?
Well, it's a continuation of the public hearing.
Right.
Public hearing closes and the
board
days
votes.
can vote. They can. They don't have to that night. They sleep on it if they want.
You know, I mean, I definitely see what the problems can be, but like the last speaker, you know, I can also see that there are probably more compliances with, you know, good neighborly policy than there are violations of, you know, neighbors' rights. I don't know. You know, we don't do this. So
I will note. I made my statement, in which is somewhat in lockstep.
No, it's good. I mean, it's great work.
But there's not any. I haven't seen successful litigation against the prohibition anywhere. I'm awaiting it. I think it will happen, but I haven't seen it. So I mean, from an authorizing the board directs me how to draft the law. There's nothing out there that I can find that would prohibit me from doing this law, but I'm trying to read tea leaves, right?
Yeah.
But I will note a couple quick things, and this is kind of tying two things together here, or three things. In our code, and bed and breakfasts are an exception from short-term rentals.
Right.
The code reads for the following on bed and breakfast: a dwelling, which overnight accommodations not exceeding 8 bedrooms, and breakfast are provided to transient guests for compensation. Bed and breakfast must be the primary residence of the owner proprietor.
Right.
I would like something stronger than
mitigates
that,
that,
but that kind of has your on-premises thing,
Right.
but that a domicile and primary residence, those are murky things. Someone owns 5 houses.
Yeah, this is,
you know.
yeah, you're really talking about guys that are loading up and,
But, no, there's no permit process for bed and breakfast, so, I mean, and that hasn't run wild, I don't know. There's no permit process. You don't have to go before I don't think, as far as I can tell, there's a special permit.
well, they
But
do
we
have to
don't have a-
register with the state, though.
It's a permit process in 2 of the zones, and that is prohibited in the others, but I don't know of any bed and breakfasts in town, and I know that the ones I know, those people don't live on premises, so, I don't know, just something to consider, but it's carved out.
Under that condition, the condition of doing it as an Airbnb, all they really have to do is get a Happy Meal for breakfast for a person.
Yeah, you could
And that would
DoorDash,
suffice.
you could DoorDash them arguably.
Yeah.
I don't know about DoorDash, but.
So this is what happens, this is what keeps me up at night, all right?
So you're planning on this being on the next hearing?
What's that?
You're planning on
Probably
this
30,
being on
I would suggest to the board 30 days, because I would like to get this to the planning board, the ERB,
Yeah.
and the county, which satisfies the requirements, that they have their public input, or their, be heard, their comments be heard, so,
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna hear from them.
yeah.
Thank you.
Neil?
Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the board and to our attorneys for working on this. I think we've gotten to the point where I think most of the public wants to be here. We do have the requirement for B&Bs.
I misspoke, I realized there's the chart on the appendix.
And there is actually 1 or 2 that I know of that actually
They
were
do?
permitted.
Okay.
And do exist, and we've never heard about them.
I don't even know about it.
So yes, it does happen, and yes, it can happen, and probably many of these people who are acting as, or calling themselves an Airbnb right now, or short-term rentals, probably could comply with this and be accepted relatively quickly. So yes, I think it can work, and I think we have provided, and I think, thank you very much for doing the work.
Yeah, the Airbnb seems to be separating from the B&B, that everybody has an old school tradition of bed and breakfast, like upstate, where the owner brings you, like, and that game has changed, I mean, so, but, anyway. I would suggest, if there's no more comments from the public right now, what did you say, June 12th, we go to, that affords me time and extra time with the planning board.
Enough time?
Yeah, that, well, I said that a year ago too, so.
All right, that being said, could I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on introductory law number 13 of 2024 to June 12th?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Seeker Lead Agency Hartley Road Battery Energy Storage System, ESS 114 Hartley Road. Sean, this is just simply authorizing the planning board as the agency, anything else?
No, Mr. Supervisor, that's all. I understand the applicant was before you at your last meeting.
He was,
At that time, you were unable to consent to the planning board being lead agency because you hadn't received the planning board referral yet.
Correct.
You now received it, so you can make a motion to consent to the town of Goshen planning board be lead agency if that's what you'd like.
Anything from the board? All right, so, George, anything?
Well, you need a motion?
Motion to consent planning board
Yes.
to act as lead agency.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. So there's nothing else that we have to do now, right?
Well, they have to come back to us, right?
They will eventually be back to you. You have special permit authority under
Right.
your code, so they will need to come back to you. But right now, they're trying to, as you know from other applications, you want an advanced seeker so you can get to those other agencies and whatnot.
Right,
So-
but the planning board will give basically their provisional approval, and then it will come back to us.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to occur that way. Usually when you have an application, like a solar application that requires both, I think the planning board tries to encourage, we can try to encourage joint public hearings with both boards to get the public at the same time. So my guess is the next time you see them would likely be a joint public hearing, or
Got it.
scheduled those hearings.
So, a question though, Sean, that when they came in front of the planning board, they had their, apparently they gave a presentation with a equipment that they were gonna be providing, and they pulled back on that. During the process for the planning board, do you evaluate the equipment all, or just the application?
Usually the specific equipment isn't provided, so for example, if somebody uses a certain valve, it's not this manufacturer or that manufacturer, but in this particular case, as you know, with the solar, the board, planning board, and I know this board, likes to know where it's coming from. They're not looking for materials from certain countries. They want to make sure that if the applicant doesn't know, the board usually assign different parameters, for example, no PFAS or harmful chemicals or something like that. It makes it a lot easier if they know, but in this instance, they don't know, so it's likely that those conditions would be attached to this application if it moves forward.
Because we made it clear to them that, you know, any equipment that they are gonna be presenting for this project can't be on the State Department prohibition list for mainly Chinese companies
Yeah.
that
So
are
that's-
ties to the Chinese government.
That makes it a very nice, neat condition for the attorneys to work with.
Okay, very good. All right, so that motion's done, thank you. Next item on the agenda is to review and approve the stormwater management agreement between Chafin Pools and the town of Goshen. I see this dates back to 2018.
Yes, so, as you know, if somebody comes to the town, there are requirements, because the town is an MS4, for them to have a stormwater maintenance agreement. There's a draft agreement in the code, I think it's Schedule B, and that usually occurs before the permit is issued. And Mr. Supervisor, you've been through a lot of these recently, I know you're familiar with it. In this particular instance, I think because of the timing of the application started before you were an MS4. So what we've been doing, when an applicant then comes to get the permit terminated, we look back to make sure that you have the agreement.
Right.
In this case, you didn't have the agreement, so we told the applicant they're not going to terminate the permit, and they have to pay the annual fee to the DEC until the agreement's in place. So this is, the agreement was drafted by Kelly. My understanding is it's consistent with the other agreements the board has done, and basically it requires the applicant to maintain the stormwater facilities, and gives you the obligation, not the obligation, the right but not the obligation, to go in and do maintenance if the applicant fails to do so.
Okay. Any questions from the board? No? All right.
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the stormwater management agreement between Chafin Pools and the town of Goshen?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda is discuss and authorize supervisor to sign the letter of engagement with Young Summer. The board, they presented a letter of engagement to us with a lot of different items on it. The board asked me to go back and negotiate somewhat of a better deal and a final price. I have done that. We've eliminated some stuff from them, and they gave us a new agreement that encompasses everything, the scope of work they have to do with us, not to exceed $20,000. This dates back to the, them working on the agreement for a public-private entity to handle the district that we are attempting to form for commercial water and sewer. Any questions from the board?
Now, this is just a modification of the prior letter, correct? I mean, the prior offer that we talked about,
Yeah,
schedule fees?
the original offer was somewhere around 45, 50,000.
Right.
And this is not to, George asked them to, I know George wanted a reduction in the rate, they chose not to do that, but they did give us a not to exceed $20,000
Yeah,
for the scope of work that we need done.
yes.
Any questions? No? George, anything? No. All right, so could I have a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the engagement letter?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Need a roll call on this?
No.
No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda, discuss and approve the Next Amp altruist request for an extension of the special use permit through September 2025. This dates back to, yep,
Dates back till May of '23. They've given you a letter, they've explained some of the
Mhm.
delays. The applicant has gotten an extension of planning board approval through September 4th. Speaking with Rory this afternoon, it would probably be best if your approval has the same date.
coincide then?
Yeah, because that's the last approval the planning board can give.
Give.
Yeah,
And this is essentially because the DEC stopped the project on,
that's what they indicated.
okay. Any questions from the board? No?
Need a motion?
Yeah, need a motion to, to extend the special use permit to, what'd you say, Dave?
September
September
4th.
September 4th.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda, discuss introductory law 1, 2, and 3. Introductory law 1 entitled local law, increasing the term of the office of town supervisor from 2 years to 4 years. After the last public hearing, it's clear that the town is not in favor of that. We are going to be eliminating local law number 1 tonight.
Two, introduction.
Yep. Next item is
Okay.
introductory law number 2 entitled a local law creating Chapter 31, receiver of taxes and assessment position, abolishment thereof, of the code of the town of Goshen, and increasing the term of the town clerk from 2 years to 4 years. And introductory law number 3, a local law increasing the term of the highway superintendents from 2 years to 4 years. Any comments from the board? Questions?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think 3 should be terminated as well.
Okay.
So 1 and 3. 2 I want to speak to
That's the tax, yeah.
about Mary, so I have a couple of things I want to speak on that, but that's my 2 cents.
Okay, any reasoning behind the highway department?
No, I think overall, there wasn't any, and I know what you were saying, they spoke to the supervisors. As I recall, though, collectively, I don't think anybody wanted to extend any length of terms, essentially, and it's been done before. It was done when I was with the village as well. We were going to change the mayor's role from 2 to 4, and it went down. So I think it's pretty clear in my mind that people want to be able to vote for their elected officials in a timely manner, in this particular case, 2 years.
I had a question though, so this would not technically be then on the ballot?
If you don't vote, yeah, you're voting, when you ultimately make the decision, you're voting whether to put it on the ballot
Correct,
as a resolution.
regardless whether
Whether you
we
have an
vote.
opinion that you
Right.
think it should go through or not, whether you think it should go to the vote of the people. That's essentially what you're saying.
Okay.
So, from,
And you can separate them, you don't have to, you can.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's 1, 2, and 3, right, one's off the table, 2 and 3,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
from my
So you gotta,
perspective.
yeah, when you vote, I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
I know we
I just wanna
opened,
be
we opened
clear
the
on this.
discussion, we're gonna open the discussion about all 3. We've done public hearings with them all 3 because they are similar.
Right.
When you vote, each one's gotta be put in order.
Yeah, okay. I mean, from
Just,
my,
just when you get to that point, if you get to it tonight or whatever.
Well, I think the people should choose. I mean, I've heard people speak. Most people do not, that come to the meeting, do not want to see the supervisor or the clerk have a 4-year term because they like, or the superintendent also, because they want to have the choice. And I understand that. However, there are people that feel differently. And it's not always 1 or 2 people that should be making the decision for everyone in the town. So I feel like we should be able to bring this to a vote for the town to decide. That's my opinion.
okay. I'll tell you, from my perspective, the highway department superintendent is a highly technical job. This town, and you guys can attest to it, I wasn't here, but this town went through a very, very tough time with somebody who wasn't qualified for the job. Cost the town a lot of money, and
Joe, do you wanna elaborate though, when you talk about what happens?
yeah, so listen, we have a highway superintendent that highly skilled. These roads are in the best condition they've been in. From my perspective, I think when you gather somebody like that, you want to keep it for as long as possible. Because there's always an opportunity for somebody to pop up, jump in there, doesn't know the job. My personal opinion is it probably shouldn't even be an elected position. It should be, you should be able to choose the best candidate for that job. But that's not what we do here in Goshen, so, it's an elected position, and I just believe that it should be, my position, I would vote for a 4-year term. And I do agree that, the public should be able to vote on that.
So to your point, Joe, though, if we get the wrong person in there, and it's a 2-year plan for that individual, or term, that's the term I was looking for, then that person can be removed. If it's 4 years and you get the wrong person in there, it's double the time. So I think that would be another reason why you would want to keep it to 2 years.
I agree. I'm not gonna argue that. We had the wrong person in there for probably 8 years. So,
All right. Are you voting tonight?
yeah, I mean, unless you guys want further discussion, or if you wanna wait for Phil.
So we're gonna vote on each one.
Yeah, you're
The
doing
two.
individually, yeah, yep.
I pulled the supervisor completely. We're not voting, it's not going to a vote tonight, or is it going to a vote?
I don't think you don't, at this point, that you need the dais to agree or disagree with that directive that you want to pull.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no,
You're
George,
making your position known. I just
correct.
want to be clear that that's not necessarily the board's yet, that's all. It may-
So are you telling me that I can't pull it, and still gotta go to a vote?
Yeah. You close the public hearing, it's sitting there, so it either, the board's got to decide that it's just.
So then we
it's
have to
taken-
vote individually, one at a time?
Correct, yep. Even if, no matter the result, 0-3, 3-0, whatever
Okay,
combo.
I got
You
you.
need to either put it before the public or to not.
That's correct, yeah, so the local,
I see.
can you pull up
Yeah,
the local?
whether it's gonna be on the ballot or not.
That's what we need. I don't have the.
Okay, okay, my mistake. I was under the impression that we can just pull it completely.
Well, I mean,
You'd have to
you just
vote.
not, if you don't vote on it, it just sits there in the ether. You haven't turned it down, but eventually the time frame to put it on the ballot, you're gonna blow through that timeline, and it will just be a dead introductory local law with no vote. Or you can vote and say it's off the table, or you can vote and say it's going to the,
You can say no,
Yeah.
or you can
yeah.
say yes.
Or you can do
vote.
nothing, which is basically a no.
Okay, all right, I got you.
Okay.
All right, so, any other discussion? No?
Are you talking about all three laws?
All three, yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna
So I want-
do-
I want-
Dave, you wanna talk about?
I want to speak to,
Number two, you wanted to speak to number
Yes.
two.
Yep.
Do you wanna
Do one
finish
and
that
vote.
discussion just do number one and make your decision on number one, and then,
that's fine with me.
and then we can go to two and make our decision on two, and then so on? Okay, so, why don't someone make a motion,
To adopt.
as to adopt.
Introductory law number
local
one entitled local law increasing the term of the town supervisor from 2 years to 4 years.
It's gonna be by roll call.
Correct.
Councilmember Lyons,
No,
Councilmember Florio,
Nay.
Councilmember Gallo.
No.
Supervisor Petro.
No.
Okay. All right, so let's reopen the discussion on introductory local law number
Number
two,
two.
which is the.
Receiver of taxes and assessment position, abolishing thereof.
And,
Right, George.
and
okay,
also.
so in this particular.
I opened it before.
I just wanted to be clear that it's
Yep.
also abolishment thereof, but it's also an extending
The town, yep,
term, yeah.
yep, exactly, from 2 years to 4 years.
George?
And I think Mary, we've talked about, I think the rationale for the 4 years is that the term of the receiver of taxes is 4 years?
Correct.
Yes.
Right, so it would match up with, in your particular case, town clerk. And that's therefore the reason going from 2 to 4 years.
Right.
Okay, so what I want to do is talk about this tonight for a couple of different things. And, you know, I have a little history here, so I can give you a little bit of that, although other people are aware of it as well. This was part of the clerk's job up to January of 2025. So it was functioning fine.
January of what?
January of 2025.
This past January?
Up to
Yeah.
January 25,
Yep.
that's the way it was. And we thought we were gonna be proceeding in that way. Then there was an election, and Nan won the election, and therefore it changed. However, 20 years ago, we looked into this, 20 years ago, prior to Judy Andrews becoming the receiver of taxes, it was part of the clerk's job. And as we researched it, there wasn't any local law, there wasn't anything. It just, it's somehow magically appeared 20 years ago or thereabouts that it was now an elected position. I think it's the most cost-effective way to go, speaking positive for local law too, because there's no increase in costs whatsoever. Also, there's better service, because they're here all day, you know, 12 months, well, you don't need the receiver of taxes for 12 months, but they're here day in and day out, 9 to 5. Better service. And I think also faster service, because what's happening is they are taking the checks in and depositing them in a timely fashion. Prior to that, what was happening was they were being sent off to Buffalo, and then bank up there would open them up and then put it into the accounts. And, you know, we're talking about millions of dollars here. So right now, you can get 4%. In fact, we're getting 4.1% from New York Class. So you get the money in the bank as quickly as you possibly can, and after the millions of dollars go in, that's real money. It's real money that's coming back to the town. So expediting that so that we can get them into the accounts as quickly as possible is another thing that I think can be done if it goes back to the clerk. So that's my rationale for putting this, and ultimately it's the constituents' approval, whatever you decide. But ultimately, it's your approval, and I'd like to see it go because of what I just said.
Thank you, George. Rick?
I agree with George. I was thinking this along the same terms. I think that moving the money along faster, getting it deposited, having it accessible to us quicker makes a big difference. So I too feel that it should go to the people.
Agreed.
I also agree. And I think I think that the cost that we have there now is gonna escalate, moving forward, and the position is just gonna grow and grow and grow, and 99% of the work can be done, you know, is being done by the clerk's office already, and you're seeing more and more municipalities go that way. So, I think it should go to a vote, and I think the people should vote on it. And I agree, you know, we spent a lot of time trying to find the local law that created the district, and even the Board of Elections doesn't have it. I can't attest to what happened 20 years ago, but it just seems like.
It goes, I mean, the online access goes back to 2000. I just did another Boolean search and I can't find
Yeah,
anything.
but we called the Board of Elections, we spoke to the chairwoman, and they could not find anywhere where it was done. So I'm not sure how it was done, but it was done.
And then the other thing is, this is meant to be no disrespect at all for Nan. Nan came in, did a good job. I just think that this is a more cost-effective way at going about it.
Yeah, and what we're doing tonight has no effect on the outcome of whether it gets voted in or not, or Nan gets elected, or whoever gets elected. This is just putting it
Putting
to
on
the
the
people.
ballot. Yep.
All right,
Need a motion to adopt.
motion to adopt local law number,
Introductory.
local law number 2, 2025.
It'd be local law
Yes.
number 1.
No, it's still in.
Local law number 2, correct?
Number 2.
Yep.
But it's
Maybe
gonna
I'll-
become local
Yeah,
law
it-
number 1.
which will be adopted as local law number 1 of 2025. And just, Joe, if you would just read into the record the name of the law. I know we've identified it a few times, introductory local law number 2.
As introductory local law or local law?
Introductory local law number 2 of
entitled
2025.
Local law creating chapter 31, receiver of taxes and assessment position, abolishment thereof, of the code of the town of Goshen, and increasing the term of town clerk from 2 years to 4 years,
That's it.
Okay, and which would be adopted as local law
which would
number
be
1.
adopted as local law number 1 of 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Gallo?
Aye.
Councilmember Florio?
Aye.
Councilmember Lyons?
Aye.
Supervisor Petra?
Aye.
Okay, then you're on to introductory local law number 3, which seems like the discussion has been taking place already. I don't know if there's any more.
Introductory law number 3, a law increasing the term of highway superintendent from 2 years, to 4 years. Any additional discussion?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, so can I have a motion
To adopt.
to adopt introductory law number 3, a local law increasing the term of office of the town highway superintendent from 2 years to 4 years, which will be adopted as what?
Local law number 2.
Local law number 2 of 2025.
So moved.
Second,
That you-
Did somebody second? Joe?
Second.
Rick?
It's a motion to vote on it.
Just to move
That
the vote.
doesn't mean you're adopting it, it's just a
Right,
motion
to
to vote on whether you adopt it or not.
So a no vote is, you wanna leave it at 2 years.
That's correct. You're not adopting the law, so it's not going to the referendum, yeah. I think it,
so it's a roll call?
Roll
Yeah.
call.
start.
Councilmember Lyons?
No.
Councilmember Florio?
Aye.
Councilmember Gallo?
Aye.
Supervisor Petra?
Aye.
Vote carries 3-1, 1 absent.
Next item on the agenda is discuss and review introductory law number 4 of 2025, a local law to amend the Goshen Town Code, Chapter 7, entitled Noise.
So,
Law 3.
I'm sorry.
Which law is this gonna be?
This is number, this
So
is
then
introductory
four?
law number 4 is just being introduced to you. The goal tonight would be to get some feedback, potentially set it down for a public hearing, and then figure it out from there. I know, I tried to get this to everybody so we could procedurally put it to a public hearing so that, you know, it seems like, well, you guys, you can update, but I think there's some movement, but this needs to be adopted at
Yeah.
some point, so.
Agreed.
I don't know if you wanna chime in on what's, before we get to the law, like what's gone on.
What preempted this?
Well, I think people understand the history of the garbage, but what's gone on subsequent to the letter going out prior to the introduction of this law, I think the message is starting to be understood, but enforcement's still an issue. I mean, it sounds, my communications with you is there's been an adjustment,
Yes.
but that doesn't guarantee that they're
Correct.
gonna stay on that, so we still gotta at least have the teeth from this end.
I agree.
I don't mean that to sway the way, I'm saying the direction, we still have that lack of enforcement ability, even if they are doing it, some new driver comes in where,
Right.
you know.
And consequences if it's not adhered to, resigning.
George, I know you'd given me some feedback, I did try to get, at least get you something, before
Yeah.
tonight, we can have that discussion now, or
I read
continue
it.
after, okay, good.
I read it.
And you didn't, I don't know if you saw Attorney Remetta, just, well, essentially agreed with that portion that was his, but he added a little bit more detail to clarify why that's out.
Right. Well, I think part of my confusion at this particular point is the fact that I have like 3 different samples
Of the noise?
of different things, yeah. But the one that I got in the,
You have 2 documents, one is the law and one is it inserted in the town code, which is something that you've asked me to do.
okay, so the one that we got for tonight's
There's a red line
meeting,
version and a written version. You're right, there's 2.
Yeah, I'm sorry, George, I was talking to Mary.
okay,
Yeah.
so the one that we got tonight, that was supposed to be, I guess, I thought.
Can I see what you have, George?
Four.
Because there's only 2 documents, there's the law written.
It just doesn't make sense to me, the way it's there, and it may be that it's not.
Yeah, so the second one takes the whole chapter and inserts where the work was done, so.
So that's the new Chapter 70.
What I showed you, when I did the short-term rental, there was 3 documents on that. The second document was the actual code, Chapter 70. There's the definition added, there's the violation section removed.
Removed, right.
And then, that's pretty much the
Right.
extent of that, and this is actually how the law would read.
Right, but now when you take that, if you go and you finish that up with what you had here, then another one that I got had the owner's liability. And
Oh, those are 2, I don't know why that page didn't make it onto this one, that's just the rest of
So
that.
this one should be.
Added to that, yep.
That would be how it would look in the town code, but that's currently what the law is. I'm not amending anything in there. I was just trying to put it in the code, so you can now read what the code would look like if these changes are adopted.
Okay.
Yeah, so the confusion is 1 page missing, which has 2
Right.
sections which are not being altered.
Okay, so that clarifies it a little bit for me.
Yeah, I didn't know that was one of your questions, my
But
apologies.
I think the 5:30 AM is too early.
Oh, that was mine as
So,
well.
And that's-
so
that's-
I'm, you know, I live in the village, they don't start till 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
Primarily, I'd like to see 7 o'clock, although I understand, as Joe told me,
Yeah.
they have to move a lot bigger distance around the town, So I guess I can live with 6.
I
But I like
don't,
7.
I don't have an opinion on it, other than why I was directed with that number,
I
was
understand.
the problem with school buses. That we've got the garbage trucks out and the school buses out at the same time in the residential neighborhoods where kids are getting picked up. You're talking about that, but I don't,
Yeah.
you know.
I did agree, George, that was the other thing that I had circled as well. At the subsection 72,
Yep.
no person shall collect refuse, solid waste, or recyclables from a property residential in nature with a refuse collection vehicle between the hours of 9 PM, and I would like to see 6 AM from 5:30 AM that's listed.
When I drafted it, 5:30 was would seem to be what was around other areas, but I have gotten feedback, I just didn't change it. That was 5 days ago, but the feedback came in off of it, it seemed to be,
Yeah.
what's the
I
sweet
mean, the
spot
prob-
right
the-
now?
The problem that you have in this town, as you do in many towns, is there's multiple garbage collectors, so.
Yeah, sure.
You know, what
But
garbage
usually on
company
different
A
days.
coming in at 5:30 doesn't circumvent the entire development. He comes, lists his 5 or 6 houses and goes,
Right.
and then, you know, Melissa's house gets picked up by 9 o'clock by the other one, so.
They're usually
it makes-
different days, which is helpful,
So
so
it makes it-
they're
makes
usually,
it-
they do pick up some different days. So like county waste usually is the one that was picking up at 4:30 in the
Yeah.
morning on Monday morning.
What time do the buses come into Hale Park?
The buses come, the early buses usually come about 7:05.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
At
6:30?
6:30.
High school, 7 o'clock, elementary school is.
8:45.
8:45.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
we have IWS picking up anytime after 9 o'clock, usually on Wednesdays, so that's
Mhm.
usually after the buses. So any sweet spot between when the buses pick up, between before
I have
7?
I do have a dog in the fight as a resident, but not as the attorney on this.
No, I got you. I think 6 o'clock.
I do too. 5:30 I feel is still very early. I think 6 o'clock is a reasonable hour.
I would be.
Well, you gotta assume
Yeah.
that,
And he might be.
you have to assume that anyone with a child in that development, that child, especially if he's in high school, is up at 6
Getting up
o'clock.
by 6, 100%. I
And,
agree.
and if the high school kid's up, then the elementary school children are up also.
Yeah.
There's nobody
I don't
saying though that they're done in an hour, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
still, they could still be going through the neighborhood at 7 AM.
Right.
They could be, yeah.
So,
They could.
Yeah, it's not capped on that end, I mean,
But
it's kind of.
fortunately for Hamiltonia Park, I believe there's only maybe 10 people that have that garbage company A that gets there at 4
Correct.
o'clock in the morning. The majority of
Now,
them,
yeah,
the majority of them have the other
changed.
companies that
Okay.
starts at 9 o'clock.
yeah, yes.
All right, well, I will put in 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Just, why don't, George, since you
Just
posed
one
that.
other thing. I
Yeah, go for it.
So the other thing is under violations, notice, and remedies, that is all taken out completely.
Correct. I was
So,
just
as-
gonna answer that
Yeah,
and
so
cite your question.
And I spoke with Joe this afternoon about that situation, and effectively what is the thought is just go right to penalties, period.
It
However-
follows, sorry, George.
However, it didn't seem to me that you could do that, that you needed some type
There's gotta be a
of,
warning.
No.
a process where a person is served. A
There is,
person-
it's under the provisions contained in, well, you could say, actually, you could go to the law, short-term rental law. There's a enforcement violation section in our code. So it already plays out the procedure, it's just a matter of, if this is gonna have no remedy time, which noise, you know,
You can't give it a remedy time because it cures itself.
that's the same, conceptually the same idea as the short-term rental law, right? This isn't a violation like a shed, just again to distinguish, right? So we want to, it's gonna be very similar to the short-term rental portion, so it's gonna cite, that wasn't written fully 5 days ago, but this will reflect a provision for enforcement. The notice of violation is in fact the notice to go to court, not the notice to remedy. It's a de facto violation. You go up, there's a truck picking up garbage, you identify, that's the identifier, right? The presumption that you're picking up garbage is you're driving a garbage truck and picking up garbage, right? But it's identified, and I'm not mocking it, part of the reason we don't have the ability to enforce it now is we didn't identify the apparatus.
Right.
We couldn't, so
Right,
it's
we
now
couldn't
identified.
define what, okay.
Right,
Right, so it's now 5 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
and the noise hits.
Yep.
So the person who's the enforcer, right, the
Mhm.
thing, writes out a ticket, gives it to the driver. That's the way it goes.
It's not, understand, it's not the noise, I mean, it's the noise that's generating the law, right? But rather than getting into people having decibel measure things outside, just hang on. There is no, it says, no person shall collect refuse, solid waste, or recyclables from a property, residential in nature, with a refuse collection vehicle identified in a different part of law between the hours of such and such, right? It's not, it's a de facto violation, okay, because the truck by itself and the process by itself are noisy. But we're not getting into 50 feet away, you know, like a noise violation in the village where someone's blasting their music, right?
They're just prohibited.
It's just de facto prohibited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's another good example, like, the noise is louder than whatever the decibels are
Yeah.
allowed, and there's no giving them a warning or anything like that. If they have the noise, and let's say it's
It's a violation.
12 o'clock at night, and the noise is emanating to that point, the person who's in charge, who's doing the violation, hands them the ticket.
I don't, this truck could be an electric vehicle.
I'm talking about music.
No, I'm talking about a refuse collection vehicle.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why that definition is put in there, and that's why the section for under prohibited noises
Mhm.
is identified as no person shall collect this. So it's, well, I mean, I could go through the rest of the operation of certain motor vehicles, creation of any loud or raucous noise which causes public inconvenience or alarm or disturbs the public's peace, comfort, and tranquility, which is more in line with what you're talking about, right? Which is general noise. There's A through O now. So there's a pretty significant amount of things. So now we created a carve out that it's a presumption that you're creating noise if you're collecting garbage with a refuse collection vehicle.
Okay.
You don't need to prove the noise.
So I guess coming full circle, what I'm saying then is, you're comfortable with the situation of how the process will take place where these people are eventually fined?
Yes, and in fact, I'll have much, well, by the time we get to the public hearing, I'll roll out another mechanical break.
I'm not, what I'm concerned about is who administers the violation?
The code enforcement officer.
How do they do that?
Well, if a refuse collection vehicle is picking up garbage, right, they're not there by accident, right?
Understood, but if you expect Frank to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning?
No, I don't expect Frank to be searching for Airbnbs either.
But
I expect
how
this.
do we make this,
I'm sorry.
how do we make this law a ticketed item from the police department who is out there at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Well, you get it on the penal law. You make it a penal law violation. Good luck with that. It's not at that level. This is a violation of town code.
Okay.
Well,
So-
I think it's something that you can go to, just say.
They don't need to be
the
issued.
waste office and say, look.
That's what I
you
was,
were
yeah,
in Goshen
it's gonna be
at
identified,
five
Vince
o'clock.
Gallo says by way of email, just a heads up, you know, they were out again at 4:30 in the morning, they've got a log, right, they get DOT log. You can send out the PD, and they could check the DOT log, because what do? You would have to have a record of collecting garbage wherever you go, right, on their logbook. So if they're out before that, that would be discoverable. It's a de facto violation from a complaining witness, right? I saw them out there. We send them a notice, violation. They come in and rebut it and say, no, my guy made a wrong turn and turned around in the development. All right? I mean, I'm just hypothetical, right? But otherwise, it's
They have
not.
logs, they know where they're going, they're sending their trucks out.
And there's ring cams, right? I mean, is that?
Well, I think just I'd rather
they're gonna come
have
back and say
Mr.
that.
Joe, it's a fair question. I'm not the.
We can't make it a penal action, we can't make it a penal action, that's it. And the-
I don't believe you can.
Okay, that's no
We
problem.
don't have the purview to. So the reason that violation section is taken out is so there's an immediate, the violation notice is the violation, right? It's not violation notice with remedy time. It's like, boom, you're due in court. It's an appearance ticket now. essentially.
Understood.
And the public would know to call the police department.
And to
Just like
that-
like if it was a loud noise at 11 o'clock at night, you're calling the police department, you're not gonna knock on the door and say, hey,
Right.
can you please lower it? You're gonna call the police.
I would imagine initially, the complaints will funnel through the police department because of the time of night.
Agreed.
And then they'll be in charge of getting that over to Frank and the building department for enforcement.
Okay.
And then last.
But I'll flesh that out.
Yeah, last but not least,
Yeah.
the superseding law.
I
Superseding clause.
I know.
Excuse me.
George, you got me on that, on both of them. I think they can go in at any time, but as I noted, I prefer geeking out on
So
it.
you-
I'm gonna put them in,
Yeah.
the George Lines superseding clause is what it's.
Special.
But you're right, I'm not
Superseding
mocking it.
clause special.
You were
Actually,
right.
it's Rick Golden.
Oh, well, then even better,
Superseding.
then it's,
I was
That is
speaking on the
golden.
air.
That is, yeah.
That's the golden rule.
Superseding in local law, so.
it belongs in one of them, the other one I could, but I'm gonna put it in anyway. Can't hurt to put it in,
Right.
okay?
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so, no additional
So,
comments?
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna suggest, set it for a public hearing,
You just need to acknowledge
I'm not-
receipt of it.
Yeah, I know. So a motion to acknowledge the receipt of introductory law number 4, 2025 is modified.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to schedule a public hearing for June 12th?
yeah, let's just do
Yeah,
that.
because we
It's,
have to extend it out, it's gonna need a 239
It's-
maybe. And,
'Cause we
I'm sending it. I don't know if it's,
yeah, we're gonna send it.
it's
to
a zoning
the
issue,
paper.
but it's not in the zoning section, so it's already.
You're
need
saying,
a new copy, right?
Right?
Say sending it out. It's like putting the
As
superseding
modified,
clause
yeah,
in there.
as
Just put it
modified.
So
in.
I'm just giving us time.
Yeah, I'm good with that. It shouldn't be a.
So till June 12th. Okay, can I have that
At
motion?
7 PM is.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will put a copy up on the internet for people to
Just the
peruse.
local law.
Just the-
Yeah, you don't need to put that one.
Okay,
I'll
next,
have that.
You'll give me-
I have to add that. Don't send it out until.
I'm not doing anything till you give me okay.
okay, next item on the agenda, to review and approve the resolution for the town of Goshen to amend chapter 289 of local law 2023, amending the tax law related to authorizing the town of Goshen to impose a hotel and motel tax. This is just something that has to get done every 2 years in the legislature. We sign it, and both Summerlin Mar and Senator Skoufis delivered to the legislature for approval. So all we're doing is re-upping the 2 more years of the hotel motel tax. Any questions?
So we have to approve it or anything? or-
Yeah, you have the
Yeah.
motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Need a roll call?
Roll call?
Councilmember Gallo?
Aye.
Councilmember Florio? Councilmember Lyons?
Aye.
Supervisor Petra?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is review and approve the permit application for the Orange County Bicycle Club to hold the Tour de Goshen on April 17, 2025. Yeah, I thought so too.
It's not run by Joe Fix anymore.
back.
It's,
Yeah.
or I mean, not that it isn't, I should rephrase it, it's not under that title, that's why it
Orange
looks
County
different.
Bike Club or something.
That's the only difference that
Okay,
I
so,
know,
yeah,
that I
because it was
know.
under a company he had, right, an application he put in every
Yeah.
year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he's heavily involved in that club.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
Any comments?
I-
Mr.
George
Williams?
Pipe, insurance?
I have some comments.
yeah, go for it.
When I-
Let me open it back
when I
up
look
for
through
it.
it. Well, the first thing I think has been resolved since this thing is Mary, you went over it with the chief.
PD, yeah.
And the chief approved it, so there
Yeah.
was a signature
He
there.
met with the gentleman
Yeah,
in
he
charge.
had
and
to sign, so,
Mhm.
so that is done. I think our insurance carrier should review the insurance, because if you look at, it's not numbered, but it's basically an agreement.
2.1 of the agreement.
Yeah, the insurance requirements, and then
Yep.
the indemnification is 1.1?
Yep.
That whole
Correct.
thing there,
Mhm.
that's not signed by the guy. And I don't think it matches up with what he gave us in the certificate of additional insured, which is the next page. Like, it talks about an umbrella liability. If you look at umbrella under the certificate of additional insured, there is no umbrella. It's zero. So I think this should be,
But his the general,
I think it should be looked at just to make sure that we have everything in
There's-
order. And actually, this is a pretty comprehensive agreement. I like this agreement that we have here with this, rather than just the certificate of additional insured.
So, George, the general aggregate, which is normally the umbrella, in the policy is actually $5 million, not $1 million.
Well, see, that's where I'm,
So
that's
this
where I
needs to
go
be,
off
this
the-
needs to be adjusted.
Yeah, the numbers didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the same thing.
I just think that it should
Yeah,
be
didn't
looked at
match
by
on
our.
the insurance.
We used to send a lot of this stuff to Marshall and Sterling, I
Yeah.
know they're not our insured, but we have Gallagher, right?
Yeah, we just send it up, we send it up to the,
Just
Matt Hospital.
for them to review it, make sure that it's in order. And let's see, oh, they're bringing a camel.
So excited.
And so with the camel there, it's coming from the Sanctuary for Animals over
Yes.
in Warwick. And because of that, they're supposed to give us an insurance policy. There's no insurance policy.
Yeah.
For the camels?
As of yet.
They're
Well,
famous camels.
What is the camel?
The camel is for,
That's one of the people, that's one of their, they're donating.
Yeah.
They're.
the Radio City
To-
Music Hall camel. You know the animals?
Yeah.
These are those animals. I'm serious.
And still, what does the camel got to do with bike?
I
no,
think it's
the
just
camel
for the
wouldn't ride the
kids
bike.
to show, you do pictures, like pictures with the
it's-
camel.
They're donating the fees and
I
the
guess-
monies that they generate.
So is it like a
to the
petting?
Sanctuary for Animals.
Oh,
That's
okay,
one of
I
the
got
things.
you.
So they're bringing the camel over
To
say thank you.
us.
I
Right,
got
to
you.
say thank you.
Oh, that's a hell of a thank you.
It's awesome.
I want to clean up the.
But anyway.
Who's following the camel around?
We need
I
an
know, that's what I was
insurance,
thinking.
we need an official insured certificate from the
From the
Sanctuary
camel.
for Animals.
I'm sure they have it.
And that's my thoughts.
Chief Post would probably line up Campbell duty.
Yeah.
He's a famous camel. He's gotta have insurance.
He's gonna be super.
All right, well, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna be able to do with this unless you're gonna say we're gonna
What's the
approve
date
it
of the event
to
again?
once
It's not till
modified.
August, that's why I brought it
Right,
up
so then-
Yeah,
tonight, so we
we
have.
had
let's go-
issues on the last one where we
Yeah.
had to table it.
Let's table
So we'll table it until we have updated.
Get it out, refer it to the insurance company, let me see when it
Yeah.
comes back, because the contract part,
Yeah,
George, I mean, you didn't see it, other than the numbers matching up, or them citing things that they were gonna provide that aren't on there, contractually,
Oh, no.
I don't see anything
No,
at all, it's
I-
actually thorough.
It was very
non-attorney, I like that
Yeah.
agreement,
Yeah.
but it's not signed.
Yeah, no, that's a problem.
None of it.
Rule number one of the,
I still would like I'd like their agreement to match their certificate of liability.
yeah,
yes.
yep,
So, you know, because the general aggregate is, which is normally your umbrella, is $5 million on their certificate,
Yeah.
but the contract says they're only signing for $1 million. I'd like to understand why. All right, so we'll just table this until the application is updated correctly?
Correct.
yep.
Okay. Next item, discuss and approve Aileen Ippolito's attendance at the New York State Association of Assessors Cornell Conference. Anybody have any questions on that?
No, we need a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the trip to the
Georgia,
New York
right?
State Association of Assessors Conference.
Cornell Conference. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Review and approve minutes of April 24th, 2025.
Mary made the one change on the back there, right?
Okay.
Date.
Yes.
Good job, Eric.
All right.
There was no mistake on the minutes, it was on the agenda, George.
Oh,
I
well,
had
the one I have has, the May, this is the May 8th minutes.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm quick,
You're
what
good.
can I tell you?
Lightning.
Real time.
Lightning.
Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay accounts payable in the amount of $415,619.43.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review and approve the year-to-date budget transfers dated May 8, 2025.
so moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Budget officer has submitted a monthly financial report and an AP review for us. And that is the extent of the meeting, and I will open it up to the privilege of the floor.
We're doing 3 minutes.
Mary's got the gong. Mary's got the gong, so if you hear it go
Got the
off. Don't be the first to get gong.
Do my best. Good evening, my name is Chris Healy. I'm a resident of the town of Goshen. I have a short story to tell. I will keep it as brief as possible, and I promise you, it will all come around together in the end. in December of 2022, RDM, which is the warehouse builder, was granted a special permit, a major site plan, minor subdivision for 2602 Route 17M. According to our codes, they were supposed to submit plans within 6 months. For whatever reason, they didn't. And a year later, in December of 2023, RDM was granted a 1-year extension to obtain all outside approvals and secure a building permit. That's right in the minute meetings from zoning. Now, forwarding to November 2024, RDM sent a letter to the planning board. At the time, Deputy Chairman Phil Jopkin was leading the meeting. He paraphrased the letter down. They were asking for confirmation that their approval was going to expire on December 20th, 2024. The board actually made a motion and passed that motion that yes, indeed, that would expire, that plan would expire December 20th, 2024. I checked with Mr. Leva in planning, a man I greatly admire and respect. He said that no plans had been issued on that date. Fast forward a few months, and Mr. Leva tells me that, well, in fact, they are going to extend this plan for another year. I wanted to speak to Planning Board about this motion that they had passed. Attorney Norton kindly told me that, no, I'm at the wrong board. Zoning is the one that needs to take care of that, okay? Even though planning passed the motion. I want to approach zoning. I talked to zoning. Grace was nice enough to say, send me the email. I did. She called me within 5 minutes to say, here's the rub. Chris, in order to speak to the zoning board to refute Mr. Leva's finding that they should get another year, you have to pay a $900 application fee and a $3,000 escrow. And that $3,000 escrow is, of course, because now chairman will speak to the attorney speaks to engineer back, and by the time you're all done, that $3,000 goes in a week. I would totally expect Mary Rizzo to show up on my step a week later, shaking me down for another $3K.
Right.
If they're gonna send somebody, it would be you.
It'd be more than 3.
And so, I would like to ask this board, I would like to speak to zoning. I do believe Mr. Leva is in error. I would like to ask the board, since they are, the zoning board, since they are the one who set these terms, if it was their intention to allow RDM for as much as 36 months.
I can address it right now for you.
Say it again?
I can address it right now for him, the ZBA attorney. You talking?
I know you're the ZBA attorney.
Why don't you just call me?
Because I was told there was a procedure.
Yeah, well, I know what the issue is. I mean, I can answer why it was extended, if that's what you want to know. It's another one of these gray areas that we have in our code that needs to be addressed. Frank requires a signed site plan before he issues a building permit. The planning board requires you to go through all agencies before they give you a preliminary approval. It's a gray area. Sometimes the agencies take more than 12 months. It's not the applicant's fault that they're doing it, so it's something that we have to look at overall. That's why it was extended.
So,
and I thought that was explained to you. If it wasn't, then I apologize.
What was explained, I did get the letter from Mr. Leva and I read it, but where he says that there's a gray area in the law, I see no gray area whatsoever. The law says, or the law says, and the zoning board said, must have all outside agencies signed off, a stamped plan, and the word is and,
yeah,
an approved site plan. They haven't even applied for an approved site plan.
Let me address this, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have an option, 2 options. You can go to the ZBA, or potentially you can spend more money on Article 7. That's the procedure. The building department made the determination. It's been run through council, but the building inspector made a determination. That's the procedure. I understand that it seems like a price that's quite large, but that's what it requires. I mean, I don't know what else. You're looking for a waiver to the ZBA?
I'm saying that as I'm not an applicant to the ZBA, and I understand when somebody comes and they want to do business with the town, they should pay for the town's time and the attorneys and all that stuff. I'm not an applicant. I'm a resident saying I see a real problem with this, and I would like the zoning board to say, yeah, give them another 12 months. I don't think that was their intention, but in order to do that, I got to drop $4K plus. Does this board have the ability to forgive the monies and let me speak to the zoning board.
I don't think we do.
I'll look into that before, I will, if they do, I would recommend against the precedent, nothing against your, but I would find that hard to believe, but, you would be, you have a quasi judicial board, you have a legislative board with an executive, and you have your quasi judicial portion for the appellate process, favorable or unfavorable to what you like. But there's a requirement that, who's gonna, you cited an attorney, and I'll be the bad guy in this, who's gonna pay me, the town?
Yes.
Okay, so the town should pay me to look into the question that they paid me to sit at the board and have the body be presented information and make determinations, or I'm confused.
Well,
because the precedent, then any citizen that doesn't like something that was decided in the application process can come chew up the town's money on a process that isn't afforded to the applicant.
So I could even go through an entire Article 78, and I'll spend all the money, and in the end, all I did was spend the money to make sure that the town did what the code requires.
Yes, that's the process.
Yeah, well, so then the process is designed to keep anybody from questioning the.
No, not at all. The time to question it was when it was a public hearing, and it would be, I guess, before you're coming to the ZBA stuff, I mean.
Mr. Brady, what I'm saying is that all of the things that got us to that point, they were all timed. You have 6 months to get plans, now you get an 18-month extension, that 18 months, that is now expired. So yes, I spoke and said all of those things at public hearings, but never expecting that one person, and it is one person, with a simple signature can do away with that timeline. It is the reason we have a board of multiple.
No, he's there, that's completely inaccurate. He's there to interpret the code. He is the first line of defense of interpreting the code. That's the process, that's the procedure. I would imagine it should be the procedure everywhere. I see what your point is from the financial end. I don't know if I agree or disagree that you should get waivers. I'll look to see if that's available, and I think from that end, I won't speak any further on it, because procedurally, I'm pretty sure it's consistent with other municipalities. I don't think we're singling out the resident. I mean, the building inspector is supposed to interpret the code. You have a guy that did it for a long time that I know you talked to, right? So you asked him. He can probably tell you if you can get around that clause, probably quicker than I can.
If I can just clear in my mind what your concern is it your concern is the time frame to get the outside agency's approval in order to meet the deadline?
Yes, approvals and planning. The idea behind this is when the applicant comes, he has to present, let's just say, traffic studies, bog turtles, long-eared bats, etc. So, okay, 24 months is about as much as you can take. After that 24 months, traffic wasn't the same, wild species weren't the same. So, for me, when they said it would expire December 20th, I would have thought that the planning board would take that big giant file of paperwork and put it into a shredder because it's expired. And if you want to build, and I'm sure they do, start over from the beginning. And I want a new traffic study, and I want new endangered species studies, etc. And I, again, Mr. Supervisor, I'm just saying, I can't imagine that when the board said you have 24 months, it was 24 months unless somebody says something different. No, they said 24 months. And so
I'm not arguing with you, Chris. I'm really not
I
arguing with you.
appreciate that.
I wanted to clear my mind.
The ambiguity of a code, I touched on it earlier. I mean, it tends to favor the applicant. That's a pretty understood thing in contract law. The drafter of the contract, it's presumption against the drafter of the contract that there's ambiguity or conflict. It goes towards the aggrieved party. The aggrieved party is never the drafter of the contract, because they drafted it, right? Code is a contract for the purposes of this discussion. So whether I agree or disagree with the building inspector's interpretation is irrelevant right now. It's just the conflict in the code creates the opening for that interpretation.
Appreciate the conversation. Yeah. If you got back to me and said, hey, Chris, we're gonna let you speak, great, I don't expect it. But that said, Mr. Supervisor, you said there's a gray area in the law. Is that being addressed?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and it starts with that interpretation, because the interpretation had never been presented in the manner in which it was presented.
Are we gonna call
there-
it the Chris Healy law?
you
I don't
want
know
to.
if you want your name on that one.
It goes
I
my
mean,
way.
save it, so you might get a better one.
Mr. Supervisor, just to finish up, you did say that we hired a law firm now, we're looking into the water district, et cetera. We're still pulling funds out of the general fund. We do not, the public has not seen a map plan. You did say 2 meetings ago that we would be hearing from Delaware Engineering. Do you have an update on that?
We have, well, they gave the presentation time. They gave the presentation in the water meeting we had. We were expecting finalized pricing from one of the engineers for how long the lines are gonna be to get down to 6.5 station and back.
And is that what we need in order to get the map plan report?
Yeah, I need a price.
And at that time, once the board sees the map plan report, they can decide whether to move forward with the project, is my understanding.
Correct.
Meanwhile, I would like to point out, a lot of money coming out of the general fund, and now another up to 20,000, and Mr. Lyons, thank you for holding it back to 20,000 instead of 50 or 60, but we're spending a lot of money out of the general fund for a water district that does not yet exist and cannot be spent from the general fund. And if you tell.
Understood. Chris, I got you, I understand, but.
I know you do.
You're making the assumption, we went into this with the hope, not the hope, the knowledge that we wanted to get it done. I know there's a lot of people against it, and we'll take you down through that, but that money we'll get back into the general fund.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
As many of you know, I am Nan Gil Wilson, and I am the receiver of taxes for the town of Goshen for the year 2025. And I understand what Mr. Lyons had said about the past experience they had with the prior tax collector, tax receiver, who was sending money up to Binghamton or Boston, I have no idea.
No,
But
no. She wasn't sending, I wanna clear the air, because
she was
she was not sending money to Buffalo. There's a lockbox in
right.
Buffalo that can be done. We changed that and eliminated the lockbox.
Right, so
When the tax
now,
collector retired.
last year, Mary, scanned in all the checks and they were deposited right away. And then when I came in, we did the same thing. And I'm a team player. I'm not gonna send money up to Buffalo, I never did. So I worked with Mary, and when cash came in, I came in and brought it over personally to the bank, M&T Bank, so it would be deposited right away. And we worked together. I worked with Mary and I worked with Kat, and we were able to get the money in right away. And when last year, when Mary was working with Kat, they had to hire an extra person, they told me, to handle the January, February, March, because it gets really crazy. So I don't see why you can't have me as a tax collector, or you're
Well,
gonna have to
you're the tax
hire.
collector.
Well, I'm saying why you would eliminate the position and have to hire somebody else to fill in. And Mary is like really busy. You had to hire Lisa to just cover, to help her out, part-time, because there's a lot going on there. So why you would have Mary take on an additional,
Yeah, I just wanna clear the air. Lisa was hired to replace somebody who was there and passed away. She wasn't hired to do any additional work for the tax collector or anything. The position existed for almost as long as I'm here. But unfortunately, she passed away. So we replaced her.
okay.
And honestly,
there's a lot to
you're kind of making this like it's something about you, and it's really not, okay?
No, it's not. And if you look at the way I work and how I get everything done, you
Yeah.
should not try and get rid of me because I'm a good worker.
Yeah, and you're making.
And I work as a team.
With all due respect, Nana, we're not trying to get rid of you. Please, we're not trying to get rid of you. We made a decision 2 years ago to get rid of the position.
Right.
We didn't anticipate that. We didn't follow the proper direction, and you got 12 people to vote for you, and you got elected. God bless you, you did that. But
43.
it doesn't stop 2 years of what we've been working towards.
Yeah, but the whole thing is you had a bad experience.
No, we didn't.
And now you're having That's what I heard. I heard that she was sending stuff up.
That
to
wasn't a
Buffalo.
bad experience.
Not a bad experience.
That lady did the job for 18 years and did a great job,
Yeah.
all by herself, with no help from anybody in the building.
Great.
Yeah.
And she did
No,
it
no, never,
part-time.
didn't have a problem with, don't have a problem with you, didn't have a problem with her. Her technique was to go to the lockbox. We decided after, after she retired, that wasn't the way we wanted to go. We wanted to keep in-house, we wanted to get the money in the bank. We didn't want to rely on M&T Bank to go through the documents and say, okay, this check wasn't signed, and then leave it on the side and send it back to us a month later or 2 months later, and then we had to send it out to the resident who now has to pay a fine
Right.
because M&T Bank didn't send it back to us quick enough.
Right,
That was
so
the-
now we're working the same way you worked last year.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we're working
absolutely.
together as a team. So,
Again, no difference to you. This law was put into place long before you got elected.
It's the electoral process, dear.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm still David Wilson, and I still live in Goshen, and I have a question about why, on the approved issue of the elimination of the position and the addition of 2 years on a term are conflated as one item. They should be two separate issues. They have nothing to do with each other. One has to do with extending a 2-year term. So I'd really like to know on the ballot, is it going to be Mary with a 2-year term guaranteed, and then a question about eliminating the position, and then a question about extending the 4-year term?
The Plum law, it's gonna read the same way on the ballot.
No, man, that's conflate. It's a good trick, but
Wait, hold on, why is it a trick?
why is it a trick?
Yeah.
Because everybody that knows Mary is going to be voting, right, thinking that Mary it's about extending
but it's
Mary's
not
term.
about
Excuse
Mary.
me, excuse
Not
me,
about
I'm speaking,
Mary.
excuse me.
Oh, hold
My-
on.
I got
Hold
the
on a
mic.
second.
If-
Mr.
I got the
if you-
mic.
hold on.
That's not how
If
it's
you would
gonna
like to
work.
be disrespectful, well,
I don't wanna be
yes, you are.
disrespectful. No, I don't. I'm not being disrespectful. I have no disrespect for anybody here.
You have an opinion that it should be broken up, and this is the way the town decides.
They're two separate issues. I have attorneys that'll probably be of that wit too.
I just note that it's already been voted on and it's going on the ballot as that, just for
Well,
clarification. I'm not saying
as
you
of
can't say
today,
that. I'm not
as of
saying-
today, you have a thought that it's going to go on the ballot like that. We got a long time between here and November.
Okay. Well, it's
You got
going, right now, as constructed, it's going on the ballot like that.
Right, as
That's all.
constructed. That's all I wanted to know, if
Yeah.
that's what your intention is.
That's what our
Because now that I know your intention, I know what we have to do about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Bob Smith, Goshen. Joe, I had the same thought that those two things in the second law should be separate. And it has nothing to do, but all of these things had nothing to do with the current office holders. It should have been strictly nonpartisan. Do you want this or you don't? Doesn't matter who's in the office right now. But I think 2 years is better, like George was saying, because the people then get to change the government they have every 2 years if they want. If we get a doozy in there, it's at least 4 years. I forgot the other thing I was gonna tell you about that law.
So do you want tax receiver to be 2 years instead of 4 years, even though it
No,
was 4
if you wanna eliminate that position, put it as a question.
You can't change it.
And if you wanna make her term 4 years, put it as a question.
I-
But it should be 2 years. And
I'm
the
just
same,
noting again, it's not discounting your commentary, I just wanna make a clarification. You're commenting on it post-public hearing, but it's been voted on.
No, I understand.
I don't wanna discount your ability
No,
to
I-
criticize it or put your
I mean,
thoughts. I just wanna make
yeah.
it clear procedurally.
I know,
I don't
Okay, thank you.
believe
Sorry.
during the public hearing.
the
During
public
public
still
hearing.
gets a vote on
No,
it. in
no doubt,
November.
I'm just making sure that we don't conflate
Does
more
anybody
issues.
recall during the public hearing if that was brought up?
What?
Does anybody recall during the public hearing, was that brought up? I don't recall
No.
the separation being brought up.
I
Because that's when it should have been brought up.
No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, I mean, well,
No.
you have Broderick, people think he's great, you know, since he's been in there's been more money going to the highways, so why wouldn't they give him 4 years? But like you said, if you get a doozy, he's there 8 years, We can't change them.
No, I don't disagree with you, Bob.
4 years.
4 years.
Well, no, but Joe used the example of, we had a guy for 8 years.
And you got voted in every 2 years.
Well, exactly, but if you guys know he's no good, you should lead the charge to say, well, this guy really is,
There's not much we can do with the public vote. I mean,
sure you can. You
I'm
can
saying
say,
the vote, the public votes for.
right, but you
for the
can sit here and
position.
say, well, I wish, you have constituents. So when you meet with
Yeah.
your constituents, you just say, we should get rid of this guy. You're in
The
the, you're,
constituent?
to the constituent. No, I know, I'm
It's 9
sorry.
o'clock, I'm just.
Well, listen, obviously it's going through, those two items will go through a vote, and if they get voted down, then the people have spoken, and then, they'll,
Right.
whoever's
Oh,
up
the other
there.
thing I wanted to say is, I heard you say a couple of times that you would be disenfranchising 50% of the people if we didn't do this. But we've already had a vote on this. The people said no. So I don't understand why we're doing it again.
So if you recall, it wasn't like a unanimous vote.
But no vote is unanimous.
It wasn't even close, though. The point is when you get a vote that's within 2% of a yes or a no, you bring it back up and try it one more time. The people have spoken, the 2-year term for supervisor is not going up. That's
Yeah,
what most people
but what I'm saying,
objected to.
the people that didn't want it, they have to win 2 elections, right? We won the last one, and they gotta win this one. The people that do want it only have to win 1 election. So how, you're disenfranchising the people that voted it down. An election is an election,
I disagree, but they have to show up to vote it down again.
twice.
Yeah, that's
If the
democracy.
pros,
I get what you're saying, though. I get
if the
your-
pros win, they only had to show up once. So what are we gonna have? Best of 3?
Nope, it goes twice. Goes twice.
I mean, you could go on the ballot again, it literally could go on every time.
We should have a
Just
referendum.
twice, Bob.
Yeah. No,
And lastly, I think maybe you found a use for your spy cameras. You put them out and find the garbage collectors that are breaking the law.
was that the thing you forgot before?
No.
Hi.
My name is John Lipinski. I came up here to beat a dead horse.
Oh, boy.
No joke.
I'm John, do not.
I can see where you need the expertise for the supervisor and the highway superintendent and the receiver of taxes, and that bears concern to vote those, offices from 2 to 4 years. But it looks like you're combining 2 different things here with, if you wish to eliminate the receiver of taxes and save money, but you don't wish to, for whatever reason, increase the term of the clerk from 2 to 4 years, you're tied in to vote either yes. So you may want to, not
Yeah, and.
to save the money and eliminate the receiver of taxes. But the way it was constructed, like the man said, words have power. And this, I don't think, leaves a gray area to be, construed here. But that's my concern. Appreciate your comments.
Thanks, John. Neil, by all means.
On item number 8, just a question really. It's listed here as to impose hotel and motel taxes. I'm assuming that would also go on bed and breakfast?
Yes,
goes on
in
everything.
yes.
Just the way it's worded as hotel motel.
Yeah, and that's why
But it's called a hotel motel tax in the legislature.
Okay,
and
but includes all.
why our hotel motel definition in chapter 54 taxation cites Airbnbs, B&Bs.
Right, okay.
And that's why I had to write the short-term rental.
Good. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Could I have a motion to close the town board meeting?
So moved.